We're now about to go live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now live.
89.5 WSKB.
From the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. There we go. Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:01. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with the chairman of the board and chief engineer, Peter Coles. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning.
How's it going?
I got some kind of summertime, either it's allergies or cold or something. Good Lord.
They're not. Well, last week was a really busy week for you.
Yeah.
Graduation, we got budget time at the city council. We have all kinds of stuff going on.
Graduation was crazy on Friday. Let me just say. It was nuts.
So what did they, and I'm trying to just do my adjustment here. What did they end up doing?
They did it outside, but
they
after
did do it outside?
Yes, it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. Apparently the class rebelled and said they wanted it outside no matter what. And then people were showing up in thunder and lightning, standing on metal stands with umbrellas. I'm like, are you people crazy?
Goodness. I am shocked about that because where were Gary and I were going someplace. Oh, I think it was Saturday. Well, Saturday we went away for the weekend, and we were driving and we were talking about graduations, and I said, "Gee," I said, "Well, I assume that Westfield had theirs inside after everything that
was
happened."
the plan originally,
and
then the students revolted and they said they wouldn't show up if it was inside. That's what they said. Apparently,
I would love to know where their parents and family stood on this because
I don't know.
Can't really imagine that mom, dad, and grandma really wanted to be outside in the pouring rain.
So the superintendent said, I got the call, and then I saw, because we had 2 cameras set up in the auditorium or the gym because I expected it to be there.
Because you thought, practically speaking, that's where it would be.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And then I saw him start tearing down chairs, and I'm like, they're really going to have this outside. I'm like, okay. So the superintendent originally moved it back to 7:30. Then 7:30 came and went, and it was still pouring and lightning and everything else, and people are standing in the stands, and I'm like, are you crazy?
Oh my god!
So they brought the graduates into the school here, and apparently they gave them the option of doing it in the auditorium, where we would stream a single camera from in the auditorium because now we're punting.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, I think they could do the speeches and the diplomas or something. And the class president rebelled against that, and then the mayor got booed. I heard.
My God, what a fiasco!
The mayor got booed. That's what I heard. Can't
I
do have somebody who's in there that said that the mayor got booed, so I believe them. And so then it was moved to like 8:10 outside when it started to tail off finally. But it was soggy. We had a camera go down, so I had no audio for a while. We had to scramble to get some audio up in the stands. The audio was terrible at
Sounds
best.
like a fiasco. That didn't need to happen.
Kenny and Brady were getting shocked trying to run a new line to the camera to get audio.
You know what, Pete? In the end, I would have said to the students, well, if you want to be crazy about all of this, that's fine. You're on your own. Goodbye. I packed up my stuff, and, our stuff's inside. If you decide you're coming inside,
Well, I think if we had said that, if we had dropped the hammer, I think it probably would have, they wouldn't have had no choice, but
yeah,
we decided to play nice and try to work with it,
You're a good man, Pete.
Well, I think Jay may have lost some speakers and.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. You'll know for next year. Set the guidelines, set the rules.
Well, you know what? Next year I'll have the truck. So I'll be directly connected to Jay's audio because I'll be down on the field. Mm-hmm. The only remote camera will be at the press box side.
Okay.
So the field cameras, I could do it that way. I could do it without the press box camera.
Okay.
So there are ways that it'll be different next year because I won't have to set up the big control room in the press box. We'd be a little bit more nimble, so we could set up 2 cameras up at the thing, and then if we had to move, now we're moving the whole control room, we would just plug into the network up there and go.
Yeah.
So conditions would be a lot different next year than this year.
Okay.
And it'd be a lot easier to pull off. I wouldn't grumble as much. Let's just say that.
I don't blame you for grumbling. I would be,
Well, I was worried about the safety of my crew.
Absolutely, exactly, and your equipment. I mean, I think you got two things going on here. One is safety for everyone, which where are the adults here?
Well, you know what? I wasn't worried
why
about.
are we letting 18-year-old kids make this decision? It's a safety thing.
The crowd made a choice, right? They decided to come out. My kids are high school kids, and they don't know any better.
Exactly.
And I held them literally down here until almost 6:40. It was so bad. I held them down here in the shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
They said, "Well, we'll walk up through the school and jump out through aviation and just right across, 20 feet across."
Yeah.
No. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Not happening.
Brady went up there in his car so he'd be closer in case we needed to fix something.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, just no.
Yep. Crazy. All right. So that
Anyways,
was
either way, it got off.
It got off.
No band.
Everybody's graduated. No band.
No band, no chorus.
Well, why would they ruin their instruments?
Exactly. They said, we're not going to set up in this conditions.
I don't blame them one iota.
Right. So it was speeches, and it was the diplomas.
Conferring of the diplomas. And goodbye.
I did the best I could on sound, folks.
Yep.
I deployed Brady down there with our little Osmo camera. Mm-hmm. And so we've now posted a second recording of Brady just down on the field with a single camera.
Okay.
So, and he got all the diplomas being awarded and stuff like that. So
nice.
Y'all can see that, and the audio is much better with that one. So it's just because,
Because.
Well, and the fact that he thought of the idea, says, why don't I just go grab that other camera and shoot it just in case?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. Go Brady.
Perfect.
So speaking of Brady, Brady's going to be in charge next week, right? You're off next Wednesday.
Yes, I'm taking some time off.
Okay, good for you. Excellent.
I told the other job, but I'm actually taking Father's Day off for the first time in years.
Oh, good for you. Go Pete.
There's a strawberry festival at a farm in West Hampton that I want to go to.
Go for it. I love it. Oh my gosh! And then you had the brew fest.
Yeah, that was soggy, but it was no thunder and lightning.
Oh, that's right. It rained on. Yeah.
But that's okay. I will take. We had those long tents.
Okay.
That people congregated under. I think we still had close to 350.
Okay. Oh,
which
that's
is not
good. Yeah.
Terrible, right?
And you had people buy tickets in advance too, right?
Right, but most of those people showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is good. Which is perfect.
I'll take that, and then that was fun. We had the attic band, which is all high schoolers.
Okay.
And they were rocking the house. And then I DJ'd the middle part when we changed bands over. And then we had Axis, which is a great local cover band.
Good.
And we had a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad it was successful because that is for the Children's Museum, and that is now their big fundraiser now that they can't do the penguin plunge for whatever.
Well, this year they couldn't.
Crazy
we'll see if they
stuff, yeah.
See about next year.
If we can pull it off next year.
Yep.
Well, I went away for the weekend. Pete, I actually
Good for you.
went away. It was perfect.
How did Gary convince you not to work?
Well, he was in this golf tournament last fall, and he bid on 2 nights in Burlington, Vermont, and he won that.
Good for you.
So, and there was an expiration date on this. We had to use it by a certain day. So Monday was my birthday 2 days ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy
and
birthday.
so thank you. And so this was like my birthday weekend getaway. So he, and I can tell you that 15 minutes before we left, we went from Saturday to Monday. We came back Monday morning, and then we both worked on Monday afternoon. But we left Saturday morning, and 15 minutes before we left, as I'm scrambling around the house, Charlie was having some serious diaper rash issues and was in excruciating pain. So we had a couple of really hard days. Plus, she had a stomach bug. That's what started this whole thing for her.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to help Grace with her. Grace was going to be alone with her for the weekend, and which would have been fine if she was healthy, fine, and all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, I can tell you, 15 minutes before we left, I was downstairs. I'm trying to hurry and get stuff done. I was like, this is not worth it. It's not worth it. It's so not worth it. I was like, I'm so stressed out, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, we got in the car.
You needed to go.
And you know what? And while we were coming back on Monday morning, I was like, oh, that was so worth it. Oh, it was so worth it.
You know what?
It was so wonderful. It was fantastic.
I had to use some vacation time, so I took yesterday as a vacation day. And my part-time job offered a class in how to deal with mental illness, how to recognize mental illness,
Yeah.
and then how to deal with dispatcher stress.
Okay.
And you needed that weekend.
I did. Oh, it was
and
like
sometimes you have to, and that's one
I
of the
know.
things they said. Sometimes it's kicking and screaming. You need to
yes,
go.
yeah, and I was kind of, sort of. I mean, I was looking forward to it, but then when everything was going on with Charlie and
Correct.
but we stayed at the Doubletree Hotel in Burlington. I can't say enough about it. I mean, it's a
Doubletree's a
beautiful,
good brand.
It's a beautiful layout. They put the pool right in the middle of sort of everything on the first floor. So it's all glass. It's indoors, but it's all glassed in. And then they have, kind of atriums all over and sitting areas with lots of light. I said to Gary, I'm sure it's beautiful in the winter when, with the snow. I mean, everything's just
I'll have to remember that for the
great.
wintertime because we look for places to go with a pool.
It is gorgeous. I would go back there in a heartbeat. They were so accommodating. It included breakfast. And when I say breakfast, I was like,
Full
go in,
breakfast,
here's
yeah.
a menu, sit down and order anything you want.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh my God, it was fabulous.
Wow.
It was absolutely fabulous. And Gary kept saying to me all weekend, I said, do you want to do this? Or he said, it is your birthday weekend. He never hurried me. He never rushed me. Even when I was stressed out before we left, he wasn't like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. And I was just like, when you're ready, we'll go. And
Yeah.
I said to him, I thanked
Again,
him about
you
1,000
needed that
times.
too.
I did. It was just I told him, I said, this was like the best birthday present because I never felt rushed. I didn't feel like we had to be here, be there. We kind of did the downtown, Burlington. They cut
Burlington's
off
a
the
great
streets.
city.
It is. It was fun. We just walked around down there. We toured, UVM, University of Vermont, because we're always big on like going and visiting colleges, and we visited St. Michael's, which is just outside of Burlington. What a gorgeous
Yep.
campus! I mean, that was beautiful. So we did that on Sunday mornings. We got some walking in. I got some reading in. We watched some TV. It was fabulous. It was a great weekend. I came back all refreshed and
Nice.
ready to go. And yes, that was really nice.
That's part of my plan for this weekend. A friend of mine asked me to DJ his 60th birthday party.
Okay.
And it's kind of also a semi-wedding reception because he had a small wedding a
Okay.
couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So I'm doing that on Saturday, but it's all friends and it's all music I like. So
Yeah.
I've decided not to take. I'm not taking many DJ jobs, like
Yes.
just a handful this year.
Yep.
And I'm deciding I'm just taking for music I like.
Totally. I totally understand that. Because I think if it's music you like especially with people that you know and sort of your friends kind of thing, it's just fun,
Right.
that it doesn't seem like it's work.
Right.
So,
yeah. And
perfect.
I think I'm going to get plenty of, if I want to DJ, I'm going to get plenty of time with the room next door.
Okay.
Because that's being built. I don't know if you noticed that the other room looks a little different.
Well, everything's starting to look different. Yeah, I did notice. As soon as I came in, I'm like, okay, we have
We had to
things being
cannibalize
moved
some
around.
stuff in the studio because we had to set up in two places for graduation.
Yeah, yeah.
All of it hasn't gone back yet.
Yeah,
is
no,
part
it's
of it.
fine. It's actually very spacious in here right now.
Well,
it's pretty good.
Also, yesterday we had the freshman barbecue for incoming freshmen.
Okay, nice.
So parents were taking tours of shops with their kids, so we needed to neaten up in here.
Yeah.
And I told Kenny and
Yep.
Brady, I'm like, Brady, you kind of made a mess setting up for graduation because that was your deal this year.
Yeah.
So you guys clean up.
Understandably so, but now clean up your messes. Yeah.
I got paperwork and budget meetings I have to cover
Yeah.
because
There you go.
the council asked me to cover all the budget meetings. So
Yeah, here we are, budget time. All right, well, listen,
yeah, I'm
we
sure
have.
you missed that a lot.
You know what, Mike Squindo has been into. We've reviewed
He's right
everything.
before me tomorrow.
Yeah,
Or
he's-
tonight.
Is it? Yeah, it is tonight. That's right. It's tonight,
tonight.
but it's virtual. They're doing it virtually, right?
Because Ralph had to go to what was his son's house or
Okay.
something.
Okay.
So and went actually very smooth last night.
Oh, good. Mike Squindo said, he said, "Oh, we're doing it virtually." He said, "I've never
Only
done a
these two.
budget meeting that way."
Only these two, yesterday and today.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
So-
Ralph had to be away. So.
Well, Mike was pretty stoked about it. He's like, "Hey, that's great. Okay, I can do
Yeah,
that."
I'm happy with that too. I mean, yesterday
From
obviously
the
I had
comfort
to,
of my office.
I had to do it down here because we had the freshman barbecue, but tonight I'll be doing it at home.
Yeah. Pretty good.
Yep.
All right. Well, listen, we have a full slate this morning, so we got to get going. Dr. Nitin Batnager is with us this morning. We're going to be talking about an in-depth look at risk factors for heart disease. Of course, Dr. B is a cardiologist, so this is his specialty. So let's bring him in with his song, You've Got to Have a Heart, by Eddie Fisher. You are listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. We'll be back in just 2 minutes.
You've gotta have heart. You've gotta have heart.
You've gotta have heart. All you really need is heart. When the odds are saying you'll never win, that's when the grin should start. You've gotta have hope. Mustn't sit around and moan. Nothing's half as bad as it may appear. Wait till next year and hope. When your luck is batting zero, get your chin up off the floor. Mister, you can be a hero. You can open any door. There's nothing to it but to do it. You gotta have heart. Miles and miles and miles of heart. Oh, it's fine to be a genius, of course, but keep that old horse before the cart. First, you've gotta have heart.
You've gotta have heart. You've gotta have heart.
You've gotta have heart. All you really need is heart.
When the odds are saying you'll never win, that's when the grin should start.
You've gotta have hope. Mustn't sit around and moan. Nothing's half as bad as it may appear. Wait till next year and hope.
When your luck is batting zero, get your chin up off the floor. Mister, you can be a hero. You can open any door.
There's nothing to it but to do it. You've gotta have heart.
You've gotta have heart.
Miles and miles and miles of heart.
Miles of heart.
Oh, it's fine to be a genius, of course, but keep that old horse before the cart. First, you gotta have heart.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:19. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with the chairman of the board and chief engineer, Pete Coles. Good morning, Pete, behind the glass there.
Good morning.
And my guest first hour is Dr. Nitin Bhatnagar, Dr. B, as we like to call him, is a local cardiologist, also a member of the Westfield Board of Health. Joins us as often as I can convince him to come on the show. And today is such an easy topic for you because we are in your wheelhouse, Doc. We're talking about a nice in-depth look at risk factors for heart disease. And so obviously, you know, we have a Dr. Cardiologist over here. So we're really going to dive into that this morning.
Okay.
All right.
So thank you very much for having me.
You are so welcome.
And the reason why I came up with this topic, I think it's important as we're going into the summer, as we are going to be able to go outside more, exercise more, change our diets, eat fresh food, all these sorts of things. So I thought it would be a good idea to bring this in as we start thinking about what we would like to do.
Yeah.
So, but why is this so important, right? Why is this such an important topic of identifying what our risk factors are. Well, 127 million people a year are affected by heart disease in this country.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. And, the average cost is about 400, we talk about, everything is in cost these days, right?
Yeah.
So the average cost is about $444 billion a year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And in 2019, it was $250 billion.
And how much is it now?
$444 billion.
Wow.
So it's despite all our great medications,
Yep.
we've got great abilities to get people to the cath lab in time, take care of them with all the medical advances, we still have a very high cost in heart disease.
Yeah.
And in the end, prevention is still better than cure.
Yeah.
Which is why I think the more we identify what the problems are, the better it is.
Yeah.
And the U.S., when you break down all the analysis of whether it's the cost of living, whether it is the comparing us to highly developed countries versus the lower developed countries, the U.S. is still the highest in the world. It's the top 3 in the world for heart disease.
Okay.
So no matter what we've done,
it hasn't worked.
we still are in the top of the game.
Yeah.
Right. And this is one of the topics that you don't want to be the top of the game for.
Right. Exactly. Right? Exactly. We'd rather be off the radar screen
right.
on this one. Yeah.
And it's interesting is that when you look at the statistics, no matter how you slice it, right, we are the highest of heart disease regardless of gender, age, and ethnicity. So you would think, oh, well, women will probably get a higher heart disease, and maybe the older you get, the more heart disease. Well, that's all true. But despite that, the U.S. is still the highest in the world for this. So it's very important for us to work on that.
Yeah, it is. That's not a claim to fame that we really want to have, right?
And for the most part, people think, well, what can I do, and so on. Well, more importantly, we need to identify what are the modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors.
Okay.
Right? So the unmodifiable, those that I cannot help you, are age, gender, and your ethnicity.
Okay.
Right. And family history.
I was going to say, and heredity.
Heredity,
right. About that
so I really can't change any of those 3 things.
Okay.
But there are a lot of things that I can help you and I can change with.
Okay.
And your primary care providers, your healthcare providers can all help in this manner. So hypertension, diabetes, obesity, let's see, what else? Lack of activity, nutrition, right? All of these are important, cholesterol. So all of these are important factors. And we can go through each one. Okay. But my point being is that these are some of the modifiable things. And if you look at them, most of them are all lifestyle stuff.
Sure.
That we can change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So should we go ahead?
Absolutely.
All right. So
dive right in.
Dive right in. So let's start off with weight. So weight is one of them. Right.
Okay.
So almost 69% of the population in the U.S. is obese. How do we reduce the weight loss? Everyone says, oh, well, I need to go and exercise. Well, that's only part of the issue. 70% of weight loss is just through diet. And if we modify our diet, that will majorly help reduce the obesity because we'll have the weight loss, right? Next issue is diabetes. So diabetes is very common. And diabetes, the more we understand this now, is more of an inflammatory issue.
Okay.
And the more we're discovering that it's basically through our foods and our pollution and so on, it's also, there's a big genetic component, of course, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But it is unraveled as one unravels yarn by the foods that we consume. And what happens is that with diabetes, our risk of vascular disease, heart disease, stroke goes up actually 2 to 4%. So if somebody can have, let's say, hypertension and heart disease, okay, but when now you add the diabetes component to it, now the risk is much, much higher.
Yeah.
And therefore the risk of having a complication is also much, much higher.
It's really interesting because I think that diabetes, in my experience, is pretty much a risk factor for just about everything out there. I mean, if you look at all of these different, diseases, and diabetes is always in there somewhere. So I've always kind of felt like if we could get get control, and that's really hard because the rate of diabetes, as you talk about, skyrocketing. I mean, it is just like off the charts, and younger people are being diagnosed with diabetes, and I really feel like if we could get a handle on that, it would really help, with so many things, obviously including heart disease.
And as you know, that the diabetes can affect not only the macrovascular problems, such as causing stroke and heart disease. But it can also cause issues of eye problems, neuropathy, kidney issues. So there are a lot of systemic effects.
Right.
It's not just the high blood sugar. And the problem is that the high blood sugar, especially the spikes of the high blood sugar, end up causing a lot of inflammatory issues.
Yeah.
So if you can keep your blood sugar stable and on the lower end, you're better off in that regard. But also what happens is that diabetes, because of the inflammatory state, the pro-inflammatory state, it actually causes the plaque to build up even faster.
Okay.
So it sort of accelerates the plaque buildup.
Yeah.
Where if you compare to somebody who doesn't have diabetes, their plaque buildup might be much slower.
Okay.
So, and then you've got things like cholesterol, right? So dyslipidemia is what they call it. Dys meaning abnormal, lipid meaning cholesterol, and emia meaning in the blood. So dyslipidemia is the other issue. And you've got the good, the bad, the ugly. Remember that from the movie, right? So your good is the HDL, your bad is the LDL, and the ugly is the triglycerides. And if you can try to control some of these, and some of these, again, are genetic as well, but you have the ability to control these through diet and through medication and through lifestyle and be able to make that big difference. So, you've got the diabetes, weight loss, we've got the cholesterol, hypertension. Hypertension's the other one, right? So high blood pressure, right? That's really because of a buildup of pressures and elasticity of the changes in the elasticity of the blood vessels as you go along. And there's even a very
so they become less elastic.
Correct, right? And so almost like copper pipes as we get older. And there's a natural tendency for that. But if we keep ourselves active, we keep ourselves healthy through bringing down that inflammation, because the inflammation is going to start making that pipe tighter and tighter and thicker, right? So if we try to bring down that inflammation, we through exercise keep the blood vessels nice and elastic, we age better.
Yeah.
Right. Eventually, we're all going to get some sort of plaque disruption. We're going to get the pipes to get tighter and thicker, right, and harder, right? But we can stave that off.
Yep.
We can stave it off all the way till we're in the 90s even, right?
Yeah,
It
that's
all
my
depends
plan.
Right, that's mine too.
That's my plan.
That's
what I'm working on.
And what happens is that there's another component to hypertension, which is also the mental stress.
Yeah.
And so the elasticity of the blood vessels is also related to how we project our ideas in our minds, our judgments, our doubts, fears, and so on. So there's a big mental stress component to this that will also affect the hypertension.
Okay.
So, well, what else? We've talked about those. Lack of exercise. So lack of exercise is also a major risk factor, because that does not help keep up with improvement of immune system, nervous system, improving the cardiovascular system. So what can we do to that? I encourage people for doing things like swimming, biking, running. Simply start by walking, right? Yoga. But strength training is very important. And I may have mentioned that in the past as well as a major risk factor, where the lack of strength training, I think they should put that in the guidelines, where the lack of strength training is a specific risk factor. Because in the long run, not that we're still aging, but how we age is also just as important.
Yeah.
Our vitality and our longevity is also dependent upon our muscles, and that too are large muscle groups. So, for example, like leg muscles, shoulder muscles, things like that are very, very important.
Yep.
So the more strength training we do, the better we'll age, and the better we'll have longevity through that vitality of strength training. So yoga, strength training, stretching, all of these are going to be important. Tai Chi is another very beautiful thing.
Yeah, Tai Chi is
Does the Council of Aging offer Tai Chi?
No, we don't. We used to. And then we lost our instructor, and then of course COVID hit, so it became challenging. There aren't a ton of Tai Chi instructors that are out there, but we do offer chair yoga. We used to offer regular yoga. Interestingly, though, on Channel 15, through our cable channel, we do offer yoga and yoga dance and chair yoga, and pretty much all of the programming that we do at the senior center, we also offer, so that if people, and we started that during the pandemic, so that people could exercise at home. And I had we brought our instructors into the studio here, and they, are the line dancers. We had, all of these people in here, not at the same time, obviously, but and doing their thing. And we have a class at the senior center called Male Call, MALE call, Male Call, just for men. And a lot of our classes are like our Totally Fun Fitness class and our Male Call class is a combination of some cardio, some strength training, some weights, depending on the class. And when the instructors came in, especially the Male Call instructor, I told her, I said, these are people, everybody was isolating in their homes. So I said, you have to come up with a program. They can't go out and buy weights. You know what I mean? And a lot of them weren't tech savvy enough to figure out how to do all that online. I said, so you've got to, what do they have in their cupboards? What do they have in their home? What can they use for weights? What they can. So she did. She had, gallons of water and jugs and, all this other stuff. So all of that is available on Channel 15. We have at least one, but on most days we have two exercise programs that we offer that people can do at home. And I have people who still, even though they're out and about, they still do those exercises. They'll tune in, whatever days, because we have certain days, we have certain programs, exercise programs for them. And that was, that was really successful. And interesting, we hit a group that I hadn't really realized we were not catching before the pandemic. And those were our caregivers. So I was getting phone calls from some of our caregivers who were caring for their spouses saying, oh, we do, the such and such exercise program every Monday and Wednesday. My husband uses a wheelchair, so I wheel him in front of the TV. And all of the instructors who did them kind of talked about how those exercises could be modified depending on, what your issues are. If you, had shoulder surgery or something like that, okay, you're going to modify this. Or if you had a hip replacement, you're going to modify that. And so she said, yeah, we would do it together. He's in his wheelchair doing what he can, and I'm standing, that you do it, the whole thing. So that continues to be offered. We continue to, and then once the restrictions were lifted, Pete actually came out to the senior center. So we retaped like the line dancing one, and we had the whole line dancing class because they meet every Friday at the senior center. The Totally Fun Fitness one, same thing. He came and he taped it at the center with, a class full of students. So we kind of swapped that out. We have another one that the students at Westfield State University, the movement science students, had done a program as part of a special project a couple years ago. And so we said, okay, here's your special project. You're going to design a program for seniors that has a little bit of everything. And so that one, we air that one a couple times a week. So there's a nice variety there. Nice. At the senior center, actually, we have 3 different chair yoga classes, so different levels. We have the Male Call class. We have line dancing. We have a couple of Zumba classes. Carol Palmer, who ran the Active Older Adults program at the YMCA for many, many years, retired shortly before the pandemic. So I immediately said to her, well, why don't you come in, teach some classes? No, I'm retired. I'm going to play golf. That lasted for less than 2 years. Yeah. And she called me and said, okay, well, now I'm bored because how much golf can I play? I'm not that great at it. So we got her back in there. So she's, she has a following. She just, her classes, she's got 30 people in each class. So we offer, there are fitness classes offered every day. And then, and a lot of times the Male Call class will have their class. They have their early birds. Their class is from 8 to 9. And then they'll have coffee and then they'll go for a walk. And then they'll all leave. So it's nice. It's like half a morning for them. Yeah. But they're, and I always feel like in Westfield, we have the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club. I don't know if they still do. They used to allow open swim for the seniors when the kids are in school, because they have a pool there that wasn't being used. And then we have all kinds of, private fitness places and Planet Fitness and all this other stuff. So, yeah. And we have a bike trail right here. Right. We've got a bike trail right here, which is awesome. Carol Palmer, who runs our Totally Fun Fitness classes, is a guest on my program the first Wednesday of every month. So last month, we actually talked about the specifics of starting a walking program. because I said to Carol, I think, a lot of times we'll say things like people need to exercise more. Well, one of the easiest, there's no cost to it, is a walking program. But we also wanted people to be able to do that safely. So, we kind of, get a good pair of walking shoes, make sure you have a water bottle, pay attention to the time of day that you want to walk. If, walking on roads, walking on sidewalks, wearing protective, a fluorescent vest, which you can get at, Ocean State job lots for like $2 or $3. All of those things are important. So so we try to kind of coach people through that. Let somebody know where your route is. If you're going to do the bike trail, which is great and it's lovely and it's flat, just let somebody know where you're going so that, if you don't come back in 2 hours or whatever, so somebody's out there looking for you. So, just to be safe about it.
Right. And there are actually other programs too. I'm not sure if you're aware. Locally, we've got the Run Your Health program. It's just a fun fitness building opportunity, and it's all volunteer based, and it's free. Yep. And so we've got an access on Facebook, and then you can always talk to us, and I'm a member of it as well.
Okay.
And the like-minded idea is to get people moving.
Yes.
And whether you're walking, whether you're running, we've got some cycling programs too, where we all just go together as a group.
Yep.
Things like that.
Yeah.
And we can build that level. I mean, that's how I started. I couldn't run, and I didn't know how to ride a bicycle. I didn't know how to swim, and so I joined this Run Your Health group and became friends with all these folks, and then we started training together over the course of time. Right? And it's just started very simply as just, we're going to go from we usually start off at Amelia Park.
Okay.
And we'll go all the way right across the street, go to the bike path, go all the way to the first stop sign, and come all the way back. Now, those who want to exercise more and get more mileage can go up the ramps and then come back down. So you've gone, and you pretty much can start off just with that route alone is a 5K.
Yep.
You want to expand it and go up and down on going forward and going backwards on the bike path. You'll end up with almost like 6 or 7 miles.
Yep.
Right. It all depends upon what you want to do.
Yep.
But the Run Your Health group is very.
Was that the Saturday? Are they Saturday morning? Is that
We've got Saturday mornings?
Because I used to run on the bike path, and I would often pass them as I was coming back if I did it really early.
That was us.
And then they would be, heading out. Yeah.
Right. So there's Run Your Health, and then it's not just even just walking. There's sometimes even evening time walkings. There's lots of opportunities.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And then the YMCA has lots of options in terms of yoga.
And the Girls on the Run. I don't know if you're familiar with the Girls on the Run group, and that's everywhere. I mean, I see that all over the place. And I mean, I think part of the thing with exercising for some people, it's really helpful to have that sort of group support. It's kind of like a support group.
Correct.
And so, I kind of feel like find your passion, sort of find your niche, find what, gets you jazzed up. I typically run by myself, mostly because my schedule is so wacky that it's just, I literally can walk out of my front door, and I have different routes and all that kind of stuff. But I love running with others. It's just, I think that's a great way to do it.
Thank you. Join us.
I know, absolutely.
And actually, on that same point, the Board of Health, we were talking about this just last time, was do this program called Walk with Doc kind of thing. So myself or others will just walk in a group, and then just bounce off questions, bounce off ideas, things like that.
Awesome.
And then try to find other doctors in the community who would want to just walk along and talk to the patients. Right?
Yeah, I love that.
So it's not really a doctor-patient thing. It's more. We're all just walking together.
Yeah.
And we're having a nice chat.
Right, exactly.
So, and I believe the library was doing something like some sort of community walk program.
Yep.
So I'm trying to see whether I can coordinate something and have walk with Doc and walk the dog and walk the dog, and then also do the community walking program and do something combined.
Yep, I love that idea. And the Boys and Girls Club they've also got a bunch of programs over there. So I know Kelly Brown was running one for quite a while with exercise and really, and which is great because they're focusing on younger children. And I think a lot of this has to do, it is lifestyle. So if it's what you grow up with, it's just my husband and I both grew up in households that were active, it was just promoted. And we're doing the same, we did the same with my daughter. We're doing the same with my granddaughter. So it's like, yeah, let's go take a walk. Let's go. And it's, we have a neighborhood that's very walky too, like everybody. We live on a cul-de-sac. So it's really funny. One day, it was probably a couple of years ago, we were out walking. I think it was when Grace might have been, my daughter was pregnant. And the next thing you know, the neighbor next door saw us and started joining. And, we were just kind of sticking around the cul-de-sac. And before you knew it, in about 15 minutes, like we pretty much had the entire, people were just like, oh, and they brought their dog and this one, and this one, the kids came and, then we had kids on tricycles and, it just looked like the Pied Piper out there. But there is that sense of sort of togetherness.
Right.
All right. So let's take a short break. It is 6:40. If you're just joining me, my guest is Dr. Nitin Bhatnagar. Dr. Bhatnagar is a local cardiologist, and he is also a member of the the City of Westfield Board of Health. We're talking about heart health. We're talking about risk factors. We've obviously focused a lot on exercise, but I think we also need to focus on the nutrition piece because I think that's a whole other thing. So when we come back. So in keeping with the theme, we're going to talk, we're going to listen to the Isley Brothers singing This Old Heart of Mine. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC Cable Channel 15. We'll be right back.
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at Rockies.com.
Join us every Thursday morning
from 6 until at least 7:30.
Check out the Bobby G and Company Show
right here on WSKB 89.5
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:44. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC Cable Channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and my guest this morning is Dr. Nitin Bhatnagar. Dr. B, as we like to call him, is a local cardiologist. We're talking about heart health, and we're talking about risk factors, and we've just spent a fair amount of time talking about, you know, the necessity of being active and moving around and how important that is. We're going to transition over into nutrition, and I'm going to introduce this with one of my announcements for today, because I wanted to remind our viewers that the farmers market is back in Westfield.
Yay.
It started last week, and it is, and so they know, the people who run it. I always say to them, if you can get me the newsletter on Tuesday. They used to send it to me like Wednesday morning. I said, no, get it to me on Tuesday so I can announce it on my show. So this will be the second week. The farmers market started last week. It's every Thursday from noon to 5 p.m. And, you know, we've got all, you know, I know we're going to talk about, like, this is the season of fresh fruits and vegetables and so forth. It's located over at the Church of the Atonement, which is right across the street from City Hall. It's on Court Street. It's right across from City Hall. I'm saying this because Dr. B said he gets lost going around the city. So just to give you a frame of reference, it's fabulous. They have, thank you to the local cultural council, because they have music there. So every week they've got musicians playing, you know, usually they have two different musicians, somebody from 12 to 2:30 and somebody from 2:30 to 5. We've got, this week we have herbals, we have gourmet baked goods, we have Ray's Farm, and I think Pignatair's Farm. We've got Sarah's gluten-free baked goods, growing with minerals. We have all kinds of great healthy food. So again, that is the farmers market, the Westfield Farmers Market, every Thursday, weather permitting. But they'll be out there unless it's thundering and lightning, and then they'll call it and they'll put that on their Facebook page. But they'll have some food trucks there. Next week, I just want to get this right because I thought this was there. I think they're doing. Yep. Okay. So first of all, they do also work with the Healthy Incentives Program. People who have SNAP benefits, you can use your SNAP card for the farmers market. That begins on July 1st. And then next week, they're doing soil pH testing on June 19th with I think it's the Western Mass Gardeners Association. And you can have your soil samples pH tested by a certified soil tester at the Western Mass Master Gardener Association tent. That'll be next Thursday, June 19th, between 2 and 4 for a $2 donation. And what you'll need to collect a soil sample, you're going to need a shovel or a sampling tube, a bucket, drying tray, and a Ziploc bag. And there's all the information on that is on their website. So all good stuff. I highly recommend the farmers market. And you can get gift cards to the farmers market too, because we use them sometimes as prizes. We get them and use them as prizes for our seniors. All right, so that is our segue into nutrition, because, you know, the one thing about all of this, heart disease and everything else, everybody has to eat.
Correct.
Everybody has to eat. So because of that, we need to pay attention to what we're eating.
Right.
And how much we're eating and when we're eating.
Right. So eating is one aspect of it, but what we're eating is very important.
Yes.
Right? The more present we are when we're actually just taking that spoon and a fork and putting that in our mouth, the more present we become to what we're actually going to be consuming. Because if we don't look at food as medicine, one day our medicine will be looking like our food. So
like that.
We've got to really pay attention.
I need to embroider that on a pillow.
We've got to make sure that we know exactly what we're eating.
Yes.
And how much are we eating it, right? Much of the time, if we just eat whatever is on our plate, you know, we've all been taught, right, since we were little kids, make sure you finish that plate, right? You know, and then they always come up with this concept of, oh, there's some poor person out there who's dying from not eating enough food and whatnot. Well, but what's happened is that because of that concept, that we have to eat our entire meal, we've now got obesity going on. So what's important is if you go to any of the restaurants, there's got huge portions of everything, right? When you go to other countries around the world, Europe, Asia, and so on, the portions are way smaller and actually more manageable.
Yes.
Because then right after eating the meal, you don't go take a nap.
Yeah.
Right? You're able to still function, you're still able to be active. So one example I would say is that when you do go to, let's say, a restaurant, but the restaurant is another concept of where you will get a lot of these unhealthy oils and fried foods and so on. That's something to avoid, is to split your meal in half.
Yep.
So whatever you've got, take that, and then the rest, there's no shame in asking for a doggy bag at the same time.
Absolutely.
And then take the other half and put that into that. Have that as another part of the meal.
Absolutely.
Later on, when you're truly hungry. The idea being is never try to be full, right? It's the 80-20 rule, right? Try to be about 80% full and always keep a little bit of space, not for dessert, but for just in general.
But
this
this is interesting. Now I've connected you with Jen Jafune, our local dietitian, and Jen's rule, and my husband and I have followed this for 20 years since we've known Jen. Jen's rule is when you're done eating, if you think you want more, or you think you want seconds, you have to wait 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the 20 minutes, if you're still hungry and you would like another helping, okay. 9 times out of 10, probably 9.5 times out of 10, after like 10 minutes, it's like, you know what? No, I'm actually now I'm full, because it takes your brain that much time to realize that you're full, you're comfortable,
Right.
You don't need any more.
Right, and it also takes time for the food that you already have in your stomach to continue to move forward and then digest all that.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, and the other thing is, depending upon from a cultural standpoint, much of the time we also keep drinking water at the same time while we're eating the food. Many cultures actually, like Ayurvedic medicine, they actually say don't do that. Have the water after you've had your meal.
Really?
Because the problem is you inadvertently all you're doing is food, water, and you're layering it up in your stomach. And you're not getting necessarily enough nutrition. But the other problem is you're also just bloating yourself up unnecessarily. So keep the water towards the end of the meal. And obviously, if you need something because you need to eat and swallow,
right, exactly.
Then have a few sips.
Yeah.
But otherwise, keep the water at the end.
I've not heard that.
And actually room temperature. So Ayurvedic medicine is another branch altogether.
What's it called?
Ayurvedic medicine. It's been around for like 3,000 years.
How do you spell it?
Ayurvedic medicine.
I have never heard of that
So
term.
that's been the original ancient medicine that even the ancient Chinese used and adopted. Then in the ancient parts of the Middle East, they had also adopted. So it's originally from India, but it's been around for thousands of years.
Okay.
It's actually way older than anything that we have right now in modern medicine. It's more for helping and treating chronic illnesses and bring down the inflammation. And if you study Ayurvedic medicine, it's absolutely mind-blowing of what they can accomplish. And some things are very simple in terms of just changing how you eat it, what you eat it. And actually what you eat is also dependent upon your body constitution as well. So in Ayurvedic medicine, they also teach about how to determine as to what's Tina's constitution and what's Nitin's constitution, and see who is going to be able to handle something. So I may not be able to handle spicy food, but you might be able to handle spicy food, because it has to do with all about elements. It has to do with how you're going to be able to handle the heat, the cold from the food.
Yeah.
So food is more for science. It's if you look at your food and you see every time you look at that sandwich or whatever you're going to have, that milkshake, whatever, or you're going to look at your vegetables and your meats and your chicken, fish, and so on, and you're going to say, how is this going to add to my DNA? And so if you do that conscious awareness versus taking a big bag of chips and just finishing that entire bag of chips. You've done that. I've done that. Right? Have you ever gone through have you only had one Oreo ever? No. I haven't either. I've gone through an entire tray of Oreos. Right? I've done the same thing for chocolate chip cookies. Long time ago. But my point being is that it's when we're mindless, we are not mindful. We end up doing all these kinds of things, and we just keep on drinking soda, we'll keep eating all this junk food, and that brings up to the issue of processed foods. So watch out for processed foods. Watch out for seed oils. Watch out for things like margarine, alcohol. Right? Anything that says, what I tell my patients is anything that says low fat, low sugar, no fat, no sugar, put it back and run away as far as you can from that stuff.
Really?
Because it's all artificial inside anyway.
Yeah.
So you've got to realize what else are they putting in,
right, to substitute
what you're trying to have,
so that it's flavorful,
right?
For
watching
for
out for soda, right? And people say, oh my God, eggs, high cholesterol. Well, if you're eating a dozen eggs a day, right, that might be a bit of an issue because that's when the inflammatory part kicks in. But eating even two eggs a day is not that much of an issue,
right?
Because you actually do need. They've even looked at studies where looking at just the white. If only people just ate the white and not the yellow, all right? What happens to cholesterol? And what happens overall in healing and so on? And what we find is that if you just do the whites, right? Because that became a fad as well.
Yes,
for many
I
years.
remember. Yes, it did.
We need to just have the whites. Well, you're actually losing out on cholesterol, which you need to help with brain tissue.
Okay.
So the brain's got almost 80% of it's called cholesterol, and you need that. So yes, we like to bring down the cholesterol in cardiology, but in fact, the only amount of, even with medication, all you're really bringing down is 15% of the actual body's cholesterol. The rest of it, the body's going to make naturally anyway.
Okay.
So that's another aspect of it. Eating fried foods. That's unhealthy because it's also cooked in unhealthy oil.
Right.
Most of all these places are not changing oil on a daily basis. Too costly. So they'll keep the same oil, and that may go on for weeks, right? So things like that are important. Fast foods, type of fats, trans fats, all of these are going to be important to watch out for.
I think the other thing too, again, Jen is on the show once a month as well. She's on the last Wednesday of the month, and we've talked a lot about the fact that food and eating and diet and there is so much psychology to it. There is a science to it, obviously, but there is so much psychology to it. There's a lot of self-talk. Well, I deserve this ice cream sundae because I worked hard today. And there is a mindfulness. I mean, I've talked to people who have said, "Oh yeah, I just finished an entire thing of ice cream," and I'm thinking, I don't even know how you can do that. I'd be so sick. But, part of it is because they're kind of binge eating or they're eating and they're not thinking about it at all. And it always makes me feel like, well, if you're not thinking about it, you're not really enjoying it. You can eat that whole thing of Oreos or chocolate chip cookies, but if you're really not thinking about it, and if you are and you're going, oh, I'm going to treat myself to 2 chocolate chip cookies, and you're really enjoying them and savoring them, and then now move on. Time to go take a walk.
Right, but much of the time, sometimes those 2 cookies turn into 20 cookies.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And that's the problem.
But there is the psychology. We do this in my own house. And I've said this to my husband. If I'm going to have a treat, I take a little dessert bowl and I put whatever I'm going to have. Whether it's a handful of chips or whether it's, a couple cookies or whatever it is, it's in that bowl. Take it downstairs. I'm watching TV. I, have that. That's it.
Yeah.
The bowl is empty. That's it. Now, if you take the box of cookies downstairs, what do you think is going to happen? You know what I mean? Or if you take a salad bowl full of ice cream, when I take a scoop of ice cream. My husband got, was it last week or the week before? He went, one of the local ice cream stands opened. And so it's on a farm. And so he went and got his delicious homemade ice cream and everything. So he said, I brought you back some black raspberry ice cream. And I said, oh, that was great. I have no idea. I mean, it was just in a small container. And so 4 days later, Gary goes, what are you having? I said, well, I'm finishing the ice cream. That was 4 servings for me. It was it's just in a little bowl like this. And he goes, what are you eating, 2 teaspoons at a time? And I said, no, just a little scoop. And, once you get that mindset,
correct,
and that's what it really is, I think, and it didn't happen overnight, but, because probably 25 years ago, I could have had a salad bowl full. But, now it's that was just very satisfying, just a couple, a little scoop or whatever. And I think you have to get into that mindset, and a lot of self-talk.
Right, and in addition to that, we just talked about things that you should avoid eating. Things that you should try to consume are your fish, your lean chicken, non-fried fish, vegetables, the healthy fats like avocado and nuts and things like that. But there's also another aspect of this, which is fasting. No food. So give your stomach some rest. So people do a lot of things called intermittent fasting. So maybe that's another whole show in itself.
I think it is. I mean, I think that's a whole other issue. We could get you and Jen on together to talk about that.
But typically doing even like 16 to 18 hours of fasting a day, starting off with at least 14 hours of fasting, then build up to 16 or 18 hours a day, and then you can continue in doing this, and then maybe like once a month do a full 24 hours, or maybe once a week do a full 24 hours. That would actually give your stomach and digestive system rest to be able to start detoxifying itself. So that's the other aspect. And since we're talking about that, also alcohol, trying to avoid or limit the amount of alcohol, because that's essentially also going to cause damage to not only the heart, but it's also going to cause damage to the digestive system as well.
Yeah.
On that point, that's another risk for heart disease. And another risk for heart disease we didn't talk about, which was smoking. Just and that's a very simple one to tell you of. There are bad effects to it. It's like basically setting your arteries on fire, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And that will cause and accelerate plaque buildup.
Yeah.
So just stopping smoking will also help. Granted, the path to stopping smoking is a very different journey altogether.
It really is. And I got into this whole thing on smoking cessation many years ago when I was before the city council, and we passed it. The city passed an ordinance that there's no smoking on city property. And part of that was when we built the new senior center 10 years ago, I said I wanted it to be completely smoke-free, inside and out, the whole deal. This ended up into this big deal. I was before the city council you would have been so proud of me. I mean, I went back and I looked at that, and I remember the third time I went before them, one of the city councilors, who at that time was a former mayor, was just like, "Oh my God, Tina, you're back again. Like you've already lectured us on, smoking cessation." But I think and so they did pass the ordinance. But one of the issues, and I know I went through this a lot with the Board of Health at the time, is try to find a smoking cessation program, an in-person smoking cessation program. There is one now at the state level, and they have, coaches, and I've actually, taken the information, printed it out, and given it to some of my seniors. So they'll do, you can call at any day or night, and somebody will kind of, coach you through. But I understand how challenging it can be to quit, especially for people who've been smoking for 30, 40, 50 years. I get it. It's not impossible, but I know that it's challenging. I feel like in this day and age, I don't think that we have enough supports locally for that. That would be something that I would love to see the health department address. We used to have someone at Noble Hospital, before it was Bay State Noble, who did hypnotism, and quite successfully. He had a really good track record, and I had a number of friends who did it with him, and they were able to successfully quit smoking after having smoked for many years. And then that program he left and retired, and that program went by the wayside. But I feel like there's just more that we can do for assisting people who do want to quit.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
So
no, thank you for that. And then the other aspect is another major risk factor is lack of sleep. So we've done an in-depth thing on sleep and heart disease,
which I think is really
but that's
important.
an important risk factor as well.
Yes, and I just wanted to. We're gonna go out with this because our time is up here. But I just want you to know, Dr. B, that since we did that discussion on sleep, I have managed to continue to increase my sleep. Going to bed a little earlier to now where it feels like, oh my gosh, I can't stay up anymore. I need to go to bed. Like my body's now getting used to having that extra sleep. So I feel like I'm really mastering that.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. Good. All right. If you are just joining us, my guest this morning has been Dr. Nitin Bhatnagar. Dr. Bhatnagar is a local cardiologist. We've taken a look at some of the risk factors for heart disease. And as you said, this is the summer. So, we are getting into that get outside. If you're thinking about starting a walking program, now's the time to do it. If you're thinking about transitioning to maybe some more fresh fruits and vegetables, we have the farmers market every Thursday at the Church of the Atonement. It's fabulous, parking behind the church. So this is a good time to really start making some of those changes. And
actually on that last part, stress management is also important. So, but now that we're going outside, you mentioned about that, take your shoes off and walk in the grass. Yeah. So that's a very important grounding. Really helps with in the heart spape.
Yeah, we need to get into it.
Arthritis too.
At some point, we need to talk about that. Where people go into the woods? There's a name for it. Have you heard about that?
It's forest therapy.
Yeah, forest therapy.
But grounding is something simple that you can just do in your backyard.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. All right, Dr. Batnager, thank you so much for joining us. It is 7:04. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses on WCPC Cable Channel 15. We'll be back in just a few.
Underwriting for community radio is provided by the YMCA of Greater Westfield. Every day, the YMCA strengthens the community through programs and services focused on youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. For all the Y's many programs and services, visit us on the web at www.westfieldymca.org. The YMCA, 67 Court Street in downtown Westfield. We're more than a gym. We're a cause.
Join us every Thursday morning
from 6 until at least 7:30.
Check out the Bobby G and Company Show
right here on WSKB 89.5
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:07. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC Cable Channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with the chairman of the board and our chief engineer, Peter Coles. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning.
All right, so let's talk about, we have so much stuff going on at the Senior Center during the month of June, so I want to blast through some of these announcements. So first of all, I'm delighted to announce that we have attorney Hyman Darling coming back to the Senior Center for this year's Elder Law Education Project. And that will be tomorrow night, so Thursday, June 12th at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center. I've asked Attorney Darling to really focus on some end-of-life issues because they seem to be coming up a lot with people right now. So durable power of attorney. He'll talk about the healthcare proxy, the importance of it, and how to go about setting up a healthcare proxy. End-of-life documents, and the one that I really want him to focus on is the MOLST form, which is transitioning to the POST form, which is an end-of-life form.
Too many acronyms.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, I know, I get that. Well, the POST, honestly, the MOLST form it's an end-of-life document for the state of Massachusetts. The POST form takes it, Massachusetts is trying to transition over
to the federal.
Yeah, so that it just can cross state lines. So that if you set it up and you're down in Connecticut visiting your kids and something happens, whatever your wishes are in Massachusetts, if you end up in a Connecticut hospital or a South Carolina hospital or a California hospital, will be honored. So there will be time for questions and answers. Attorney Darling is awesome about that question and answer period. I am asking people to register in advance, but if you forget, or just come anyway, because I'm going to do it in the great room. We'll have plenty of room. So again, that's tomorrow at 6 p.m. And I purposely had him come at 6 o'clock at night so that this is open to the public. Family members can come. Seniors, if you're working, if you're, whatever, because whatever he talks about, honestly, it's really for everyone. So next Tuesday, which is June 17th, from 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning, we are going to have, for the first time at the Senior Center, Bay State Health's Wellness on Wheels bus. So this is a giant bus that says Wellness on Wheels.
How big is it?
It's really big. It's like the size of a coach bus. So it's gonna be out in the parking lot. They're going to be there from 8:30 to 10:30. There's no advance anything. You can just drop by, come in, talk to them. They do prevention screenings for high blood pressure and diabetes. They'll talk about healthy eating and active living. They'll have resources. They have at-home COVID-19 test kits. They have at-home blood pressure cuffs for eligible individuals, so they'll have to explain to you who's eligible, because I don't know. Resources and answers, to your health questions. You are welcome to stop by. There's no pre-registration necessary, and it'll be in the parking lot. You won't be able to miss the bus.
Did you know that one of the things you can buy with your flexible spending account, your FSA money, is a blood pressure cuff?
No, but that doesn't surprise me. And you can also buy...
Because my cardiologist wanted me to have one, so I'm like, I can buy that. He goes, you can buy that with your FSA money.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. Now, also next Tuesday, June 17th, we have Family Bingo in the evening. So that is hosted by Westfield Pride, because we have all the Pride stuff going on all next week.
Yep, that Bob was talking about in his show.
Yep, perfect. So they wanted to do a family bingo night, and they needed a place to do it. And I said, hello, let's do it at the Senior Center, because we have our bingo machine, and, we're all good. So they were all excited. So that will be 6 to 7:30. So the way this is going to work is each bingo card will be $1. There will be a limit of 4 cards per player. They want to do a 50-50 drawing. There are no advance signups for this. If you want to do family bingo, just come on over 6 to 7:30 on Tuesday evening at the Senior Center. It's going to be a ton of fun. Friday, June 20th, is going to be kind of busy at the Senior Center, too. We have all kinds of stuff going on. And one of the things that we have going on is a film and discussion. Again, this is hosted by Westfield Pride. The film is Rustin. It's about Bayard Rustin. And it's going to be a viewing of the film and then a follow-up discussion. So the whole thing will start at 9 in the morning. We are asking you to please pre-register for this. I think that I'm going to be doing it in the great room, and because that way we can use the big screen TV. We did this last year, and we had a lot of the members from our Novel Ideas book group came to the films. We purposely did it it's not, and it was fabulous. And they said the discussion was amazing. Anyway, that's next Friday.
I see your guest has arrived, by the way.
That's fine. And then next Sunday, so that would be Sunday, June 22nd, we have a free concert. Again, this is sponsored by Westfield Pride. Doo-Wop meets Motown. So originally, and I think I have in the newsletter, but it changed since the newsletter was published, it was supposed to be Leslie Anderson doing the doo-wop piece meets Motown, and that's Irv Lewis doing the Motown piece. However...
did somebody have like a medical thing?
Leslie Anderson had a bit of a medical issue. And so instead we have Back in Time, which was a group that Leslie and Irv both sing with. There's also a former member of the Platters and a former member of the Flamingos in that group. So it ought to be fabulous.
There you go.
So anyway, this is a free concert on Sunday, June 22nd at 2 p.m. at the Senior Center. No sign-ups, no pre-registration, no anything. Just come. It's going to be fabulous. So we're excited about all of that. Scheduling for sign-ups for chair yoga, all the summer chair yoga classes is this afternoon. It starts this afternoon. And sign-ups for Carol Palmer's July Totally Fun Fitness class are tomorrow. Sign-ups start tomorrow at 1:45 for both of those. And then Carol's August Totally Fun Fitness classes, stay tuned because we're doing something special. It's going to be a special charity event fundraiser. So I will keep you posted on that. That'll be in the July newsletter. And then just so you know, both of our painting classes that are coming up we're maxed out. So we have the Go with the Flow painting class coming up Monday. That one's full. And the Painting for Pleasure, that one's full. And our All-American Father's Day, which is on June 25th, that is full. So see, sometimes you just, you gotta get out there early and sign up for this stuff. All right, we have to do a few famous birthdays quickly. Today is June 11th. So let's start with we're doing famous and infamous. So I'm going to start with the infamous, which is our outreach coordinator, Joanne Ortegas at the Council on Aging. Today is her birthday. She was born in Holyoke, Mass. Her age is unknown, not passing that along. But Joanne has been with the COA for 7 years. She came with a wealth of experience. She provides case management and crisis intervention for some of our seniors who are in dire circumstances. Joanne has a delightful sense of humor and a passion for assisting those who need it most. So Joanne Ortegas, happy birthday. It is also the birthday of children's author Robert Munsch, who was born on this day in 1945 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's 80 years old. Robert Munsch grew up with 8 siblings. Munsch and his wife, Anne, discovered that they could not have biological children after 2 pregnancies ended with stillbirths. He wrote the book, Love You Forever, to those 2 children. And Love You Forever is one of those books that, like, everybody who's pregnant gets one as a gift. The book has sold over 30 million copies, and he has written now more than 54 children's books. His stories are based on his interactions with real live children in classrooms, preschools, and daycare centers. My personal favorite is Stephanie's Ponytail, especially if you have a daughter or a granddaughter. It's a fabulous book, and it's all about not worrying about trying to fit in, but kind of being your own person. It's a great book. He writes, I went onto his website. He's a very, very interesting guy. And I went onto his website after sort of reading his story, and he has a note to the parents. He says, I am a storyteller. I write books for kids. I talk to kids. I listen to kids. But that is not all that I am. Several years ago, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive and manic depressive. Those challenges have led me to make some big mistakes. I have worked hard to overcome my problems, and I've done my best. I've attended 12-step recovery meetings for more than 25 years. My mental health and addiction problems are not a secret to my family and friends. They've been a big support to me over the years, and I would not have been able to do this without their love and understanding. I hope that others will also understand, and I hope that everyone will talk to their kids honestly, listen to them, and help them to do their best with their own challenges. And I'm a huge Robert Munsch fan, and I never knew that about him. He has a pretty extensive history, but fabulous author. And really, he said most of the characters in his books are real kids that he met when he was. And he also, whenever he would go to a classroom or whatever, he did not want to stay at a hotel. He would always say, I want to stay with a family. So he'd stay with a family. 9 times out of 10, there would be a book that came out of that. It is also the birthday of the late Jacques Cousteau. Remember him? Undersea explorer, researcher, photographer, documentary host. He was born on this day in 1910 in France, and he lived to be 87 years old. He died in 1997. In 1943, undersea explorer Jacques Cousteau co-invented the aqualung, which was a breathing device allowing divers to stay underwater for long periods of time. He was also instrumental in the development of a waterproof camera that could withstand the high pressure of deep water. In 1945, Jacques Jacques Cousteau started the French Navy's Undersea Research Group. 6 years later, he began going on yearly trips to explore the ocean on the Calypso. Cousteau recorded his trips on the TV series The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. So happy birthday to the late Jacques Cousteau.
That's what I remember. I remember the TV show.
The TV show, right?
And he narrated that show as well.
He did. He was really a pretty amazing guy.
Yep.
And lastly, it is the birthday of the late Vince Lombardi, NFL coach, born on this day in 1913 in New York City. He died young. He was only 57 years old. As head coach and general manager of the Green Bay Packers, Vince Lombardi led the team to 3 NFL championships and to victories in Super Bowls 1 and 2. That was back in 1967 and 1968. Because of his success, he became a national symbol of single-minded determination to win. As coach, general manager, and part owner of the Washington Redskins, Lombardi led that team to its first winning season in 14 years, and that was in 1969. A second year with the Redskins never materialized for Lombardi. In the summer of 1970, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of colon cancer. He died 2 months later. As a tribute, the NFL's Super Bowl trophy was named in his honor shortly after his passing. In 1971, the late coach was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So happy birthday to the late Vince Lombardi. And finally, June 9th through June 15th. So this week is Loneliness Awareness Week. And I actually want to talk about this a little bit before my next guest comes on, because this is my sort of transition to her topic. Humans are hardwired to need other people. And when people don't have enough interactions with others, they get lonely. Loneliness is a natural, universal emotion that may ebb and flow, but will likely impact every human being on the face of the planet. Even though modern society is more, quote, connected than ever, loneliness has grown into what some are calling an epidemic. In fact, a recent report from the U.S. Surgeon General has warned that loneliness has become a risk factor for mental and physical health, stating its impact on mortality may be as harmful as smoking. Loneliness Awareness Week is a way to inform the public about the impact of loneliness and also a call to action for communities to band together with creative ideas on how to reconnect and overcome these issues. Some interesting facts about loneliness, that can be learned and shared in conversation with friends and coworkers or through online media platforms include communities that are more connected with increased social cohesion are less likely to have disease and have a lower mortality rate from all causes. Even following the pandemic, at least half of Americans state that they are lonely. The number of people reporting that they have no friends has quadrupled in the past 30 years. At least 60% of younger people, specifically between the ages of 16 and 24 in the United States, say that they are chronically lonely. And loneliness is now recognized as a persistent public health issue. Well, there's one that maybe we'll address this with Dr. V. Combat loneliness and isolation with the understanding that community fosters health and overall happiness. Consider ways to celebrate Loneliness Awareness Week that might help draw yourself and others out. Of course, overcoming some of these cultural issues is not easy, but one thing that can be done is to be aware and then make a bit of an effort. So perhaps this means being more intentional about inviting a friend over for coffee or a meal, or visiting an older relative who is housebound. Start a book club, join a sports team, encourage a meetup at the senior center, or find some other way to connect with others that will help to foster a sense of community and welcome. So, that's the foundation for topic down the road. All right, let's take a short break. You are listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. When we come back, we have Val DeQuisto, who's going to come back for part 2. Valerie works for Highland Valley Elder Services. She did part 1 last month, and she's back for part 2. So we will be back.
Dum, 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 dum. Oh, so far apart, but only the lonely know why I cry. Only the lonely. Only the lonely know the heartaches I've been through. Only the lonely know I cry and cry for you. Maybe tomorrow a new romance. No more sorrow, but that's the chance you gotta take. If you're lonely, heartbreak, only the lonely.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardie siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com, they are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:27. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC Cable Channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with Valerie DeQuisto, and Valerie is the Associate Director of Programs and Services. You know, these titles tend to be long and at Highland Valley Elder Services. So welcome back.
Thank you.
This is part two, right? This is part two. So we talked last month about Highland Valley, about your role. So you're kind of second in command over there. Do I have that right? Did I catch that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we talked a little bit, and I just want to set the stage, and then we're going to proceed with with kind of down the road with what we were talking about last month, but. Highland Valley is a large agency. You cover a very large geographic area. In fact, it was funny. I just referred someone yesterday afternoon, and I said to them when I gave them the phone number, I said, they're located in Florence, but I said but I said they cover this wide geographic area, so I don't want you to feel like what are you talking about? Why my mother lives in Westfield. What are you giving me this number for? So you do cover a large area. How many cities and towns? 24 cities and towns. Mm-hmm. So it's not a mistake if you get this referral and you're why am I calling the Northampton area? But one of the things when we kind of broke it down, Val, there are a lot of different areas that Highland Valley covers. Many programs that you have. So I think that last time when I went back and reviewed our interview, we talked a lot about the home care program, someone maybe just getting out of the hospital and needing some services. And a lot of times I think with some of those, they really needed services before they were hospitalized. The hospitalization kind of just exacerbates everything, kind of creates the crisis. But you'll send in a care manager or an options counselor. Is that what we're calling them? Or what do they
an
call
options counselor is different than a care advisor.
Exactly.
So,
right. Yeah. Exactly. So two different things. So those are, they may work with one or both of those people. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, if they end up with a care manager and the care manager determines that they need assistance in some way, there's a care plan that's developed. And then again, I would just want to emphasize to people, then Highland Valley contracts out with a number of vendors. And those vendors are the ones that may send a home health aide or a homemaker or a personal care attendant. We didn't really talk much about the home delivered meal program. Do you oversee that program as well, or is that someone else?
I don't oversee that program.
Okay.
That's a huge program.
It is a huge program. And we've had the person who does oversee that program on here, but I wasn't sure if he answered to you or to somebody else. Okay, so that's another service that can be put into place, another program that Highland Valley offers. So let's now transition to other programs that you do, because I know you said you oversee protective services, nursing, and information and referral. Where would you like to start? Let's talk about those programs.
Well, the information and referral department is probably the most logical place to start because that's sort of the gateway to getting services from Highland Valley.
Okay.
The intake in, INR, as we call it for short.
INR, information and referral,
Right.
or intake and referral.
So whenever you call Highland Valley, generally that's the place you're going to start. They take all the intakes for all the different programs and different services. If somebody is looking for services or if they're looking for resources, either related to Highland Valley or something that Highland Valley doesn't do, information and referral is the place to start. We have a huge database full of a lot of resources so we can help people find what they're looking for.
Okay. And that was, one of my questions actually, so let's kind of dovetail into that. I mean, Highland Valley is a big agency. You have over 20 care managers and, other staff members as well, but you don't do everything. You don't provide every, service that's out there. So if someone calls you and they have questions or they need resources or they don't know where to begin and you don't offer whatever they need, maybe it's legal services, and that's not something that you provide. Well, how kind of walk us through that? So how would that happen? So let's say I call and I say, I'm in my 70s and my landlord is going to throw me out of my apartment and whatever. And I need some legal help and I can't afford to hire an attorney. What do I do?
So again, we keep a database full of all kinds of resources. So we might refer you out to either Community Legal Aid, which is a service that is free to elders through grants. So they might be able to help out with that situation. We also keep a database, again, of other elder law attorneys.
Okay.
So we might give you a list of attorneys from that database.
Yep. Yep. Okay. And, I always tell people too, sometimes, especially with attorneys, just because I use that as an example, but, some of them do operate on a sliding fee and, and the initial phone call doesn't cost anything. So you can, kind of say, this is my situation. Is this something you can help me with? Sometimes they'll refer you to whoever they'll refer you to. So when you can't do something, you're kind of referring somebody out to somebody else.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And how do you like you say, you have a big database. Like, where did that come from?
So we created it back when I started. It existed. We maintain it. The Information and Referral Department, the home care resource specialists who work in that department work to maintain that database. So they will do. They go through it. They make sure that the contact information is up to date. Anytime we come across a new resource, we add it to the database. Okay. So it's just years of sort of gathering information and making sure that it's up to date.
Yeah, and I think the key is making sure it's up to date. And that's hard to do in our industry because, organizations and agencies come and go. So it's not just even a matter of the ones that have been added. It's the ones that no longer exist, because you really don't want to be referring somebody to a program that, that program, when it didn't make it through the pandemic or, whatever. So, and I know I've over the years gotten plenty of forms from Highland Valley saying, "Can you please update this?" And that because it's not just that you're that the organizations that you're referring to, have they change in terms of what they do. I mean, what we do now is not the same as what we did 10 years ago. Now we're in a different building, so we can offer more things and help more people. So, and I think a lot of the senior centers are in that situation, and certainly some of the other social service agencies where they're able to do more. So just for your information and referral folks to be able to say, oh, well, now you can get such and such, you can get foot care. We didn't used to do foot care. We did, and then we didn't, and now we do it again. So, all good things to know. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's information and referral. And how many people do you have actually working in the information and referral department?
So there are 7.
Oh, wow.
They all do different tasks. So most of them are on the phones all the time. So we're always trying to answer calls live. Mm-hmm. If we don't answer the call live, we definitely call you back if you leave a message. Okay. So again, different duties within the department.
Okay. All right. So that's information and referral. Do you want to talk about nursing, or do you want to talk about protective services?
Well, let's start with nursing, because it's more of nursing is sort of an extension of our home care program, in that the nursing department works in conjunction with the care advisors. So if somebody is needing as part of their home care service package, personal care, the care advisor will make a referral to the nursing department. The nurse will go out and create a care plan for that consumer that is very specific to that consumer, so that when the aide goes in, they know exactly what to do. But nurses also do mass health screenings. So that includes any screenings that if somebody is going to or wanting to go to a nursing facility or, say, adult day health, mm-hmm. Our nurses will do a screen on behalf of Mass Health, so that Mass Health will pay for that particular service.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people aren't aware of the whole screening process for someone, let's say, going into a nursing home. So if Mass Health is going to pay for someone to be in a nursing home, Mass Health wants to know that this person actually needs the level of nursing care in order to go into a nursing home.
Correct.
So so it's your nurses that would go in and do that on behalf of Mass Health. So you don't have to wait for Mass Health to come out, which is what I used to have to do. We used to have to wait for Mass Health to send a nurse out to do that screening. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so the nurses will go out as long as somebody is either on Mass Health or in the process of applying for Mass Health. Yep. Okay. Then they can request a screen to determine eligibility for a nursing facility.
Okay. And so when the nurse, and let's take a case where it's someone in the home, maybe just got out of the hospital, is looking for personal care. The care manager determines that. So the nurse comes out. So let's kind of walk through what that process is like, just so that, the seniors who are viewing this, have a sense of, so this nurse is going to come in and they visit the person in the home. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? And so what are the kinds of things that are they going to take, like blood pressure? I mean, how hands-on are they? Or are they mostly just talking to the person, or?
Yeah, they're mostly talking to the person. They have a very specific assessment that they have to go through, so it's a lot of questions. It's basically a head-to-toe assessment. They don't do any hands-on. The most that they do would be like take vitals.
Okay.
But they would also want to see and talk about somebody's physical functioning, as well as cognitive functioning. So it's essentially kind of taking a look, again, from head to toe at the person to make sure that they're meeting clinical eligibility for a nursing facility. Again, it also applies to if somebody wants to go to adult day health, because the rules are basically the same that they're looking at.
Okay, so so if Mass Health is paying for it, Mass Health wants to know that this person's appropriate for, say, adult day health in this case. Mm-hmm. And there was something that just flew out of my head, because I was thinking, the other thing that I think is really important to point out to people is that, in general, the goal, I think, in general for Highland Valley is to keep the person in their own home safely. So I think that with the care manager going out and with the nurse going out, in addition to just looking at the person, they're really looking at the environment, right? Correct? Am I right, Val?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, because let's face it, you've got some people who are living in homes that are, that are real. I mean, we have neighbors. Their house is perfect. It's, all on one floor. It's about as accessible as you're ever going to. It's not completely accessible, but it is really. And then, I've been to other homes when I've done home visits, and somebody's in a second floor apartment with no elevator, and they can't really even get up and down the stairs, and and then there's everything in between. Some people are living with family, which can either be good or bad. Mm-hmm. Some people are living alone, which can either be good or bad. I mean, there are just all of those circumstances. So I think that when the care manager is going out there, when the nurse is going out there, they're doing that assessment of the person, but also sort of the whole environment. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. Especially if they're looking at assessing for home care or personal care, they absolutely want to look at the environment to see what the setup is. I mean, does the person have a bathroom on the first floor? Do they have to go upstairs to get to the bathroom? Does that person have a shower chair, a transfer bench, anything that they might need in order to perform the personal care in a safe way?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so then after the nurse does the assessment, they come back, and then sort of what's the next step in that?
So again, if they are looking, the person is looking to get home care services, if the nurse comes back, they're going to write up the care plan. Basically, that says this is exactly how the person does this personal care task. And so they will write that up, and then they will send it to our provider who is going to provide the personal care. If you're talking about a nursing facility screening, they're basically doing the same assessment, but they are then completing paperwork, then they're sending it to the nursing facility and letting them know that this person is indeed eligible or not to be admitted to the nursing facility.
Okay. All right. And so what do you have sort of an average? I'm trying to, in my head, sort of figure out, do you have sort of an average number of hours that people are getting services? Because I want to drive home the point that if Highland Valley goes out and they do this assessment, they put services in, it's not like 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. So can you kind of address that? And I know it's different from person to person, but sort of give us a range of high-low.
Yeah, that's a really tough question.
Yeah.
It really varies in terms of number of hours and also types of services. So,
sure.
You can get anywhere between, a couple of hours a week for maybe some homemaking and maybe some meals, all the way up to 24/7 care, depending on the program and the need of the person.
Okay.
So
it really varies from person to person. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a break because I really want to get into protective services, which is a whole other ball game here. But let's take a break. You are listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC cable channel 15. And I'm off on my music, Pete. So are we doing the Ocean Man? Ringo Starr. Perfect. Thank you. I like that better. So we are going to listen to Ringo Starr singing Grow Old Along with Me. We'll be back.
Grow old along with me. The best is yet to be. When our time has come, we will be as one. God bless our love. God bless our love. Grow old along with me. is true. God bless our love. God bless our love.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:46. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC Cable Channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. I'm in the studio with behind the glass over there. So we have Pete Coles, who is the chairman of the board and chief engineer. Yes, I get a thumbs up. And Brady, whose last name I don't know. Brady, what's your last name? It's just Brady. He's like Cher. He just has Brady.
Brady LePage.
There you go, Brady LePage. So Brady is like our producer in training. So Brady's going to be producing the show next week. So I'm excited to work with you, Brady. We're going to talk all about he just graduated. So we're going to talk about what he's doing and his career aspirations and so forth. So that's going to be great. Yeah. And my guest in the studio this morning is Valerie DeQuisto, and Valerie is the Associate Director of Programs and Services at Highland Valley Elder Services. And, as I've mentioned before, Highland Valley is located up in Florence, Massachusetts. However, they do cover Westfield. It's just they cover a very large geographic area. They're an ASAP, which stands for Aging Services Access Point. Thank you. So anyway, we've talked a lot about the programs that you oversee, Val, which is the home care program, which is huge. That's a big program at Highland Valley. We've talked about nursing. We've talked about information and referral, and we actually have had we've had other discussions here on protective services, but I think that warrants another short, brief discussion about that program. So tell us, what is protective services, and sort of how do you interface with the folks that run that program?
Mm-hmm. So our Protective Services Department basically is charged with investigating allegations of abuse or neglect of elders, self-neglect included. We really work with an elder to try to mitigate risk. That's their biggest job. Anyone in the community can make a referral or a report, as we call it, to Protective Services if they see somebody that they think is at risk. Mm-hmm. If they see somebody that is at immediate risk, you should always call 911, obviously. Mm-hmm. But you can make a Protective Service report 24/7. There is a hotline that you can call. It's a statewide number. Yep. The intake comes in, and then it gets funneled to the appropriate ASAP. Mm-hmm. So anybody in our service area would come to Highland Valley. And so from there, once the report comes in, it gets screened, determined whether or not it's whether we need to respond to it either immediately. Mm-hmm. There are different levels of response and response time. And then the report either gets screened in or it gets screened out, and that really depends on certain criteria that we look at that tells us whether or not we actually can open the case or not.
Okay. And are you seeing an uptick in protective service cases over the years, or how's that been for you?
Yeah, I would say, it's steadily increased, and we're definitely seeing more reports, I think, than we have in recent years. There are also, I think, busier times of the year as well.
Yeah.
Definitely protective services is not a department that you really want to see an uptick in intakes, but unfortunately, yes.
But I wonder too, Val, do you think it's that there are more cases or just that people are more aware about the reporting? And, you know, and I know that's a tough call, but just you've been in the business a long time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination. We definitely do outreach and education so that people are aware that protective services exists. But I think that more and more we're seeing a lot more cases because of a lot of different factors, and I'm not, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to explain, or I can say my opinion, but that's basically what it is an opinion.
Yep.
I think that there are a lot more people that are aging. We're seeing a lot more homelessness.
Yes.
A lot more issues of substance abuse and behavioral health.
Yep.
I think definitely a definite uptick in the number of cases, as well as the fact that. Excuse me.
That's okay. Yep.
Sorry. So we're definitely seeing more cases and more intakes because of a bunch of different reasons.
So let me ask you something, because you brought up the homeless issue, and I think that's a whole other topic that we could spend 2 hours on, and we are definitely seeing more of an issue with homelessness, and I think I've been in this field for over 40 years now. And I think if someone had said to me, 40 years ago that I was going to be having clients that are at the local shelter, homeless shelter, I would have like, what? That doesn't happen. It does happen. We're seeing that more and more. I mean, we know that there is a housing crisis. We've talked about the fact today's the birthday of Joanne Ortegas, our outreach coordinator. But a lot of Joanne's focus now is on housing, and it's crisis intervention and so forth. So, let me ask you this, because I think this is really an interesting issue that I honestly had not thought about before. So Highland Valley covers this geographic area. Most of the people that you're working with have an address. How do you, or what's Highland Valley's take on homelessness? I mean, how are you all dealing with, what we see as a rising problem?
Well, it's difficult. We don't deal with it specifically. We see it as a result of, cases that will come to us. But for the most part, I think, we're seeing, just like everywhere, the housing crisis is really just causing a lot more people to not be able to afford their rent.
Right.
There are fewer affordable housing options available. And again, I think that that risk of people being evicted or losing their housing just gets greater as there's less options available to them.
Yeah. So do most of for the homeless issue, does that always, in your purview, does that always fall under protective services?
It really depends. I mean, if we're wanting to put home care services in, obviously, somebody has to have a home.
Right, they have to have a home.
Although we have delivered meals to people who, maybe living in their car.
Yeah.
As long as we know where they are.
Yep. Okay.
But for the most part, homelessness, I mean, if somebody lacks housing, we do have, or if they're looking for housing, we do have resources that we can point them to. But if somebody has lost their housing or is at risk of losing their housing, then generally that's something that we're seeing in protective services.
All right. So, Val, we have a few minutes left. What, we've talked about a lot of different programs that Highland Valley offers. What would you say, and this is your opinion, you don't have to back it up with statistics or anything, but what would you say in terms of your programs are the programs that are the most in demand now, sort of currently over the last year or so?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to say our options counseling, because that's a very basic program where people just want to find out about resources. So they're not quite sure where to start. So we're generally sending out an options counselor just to talk to somebody to let them know what resources are available to them, whether it be Highland Valley and our services or other resources in the community that they might take advantage of. I think another program that we're seeing a real increase in need for is our caregiver program.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Caregivers haven't really gotten the sort of attention that they really need and deserve. It is a huge responsibility to provide care for a loved one, and there's a lot of things that go along with that: burnout and not knowing sort of what the resources are. So we're seeing a lot of that, a lot of demand for that.
So do you have like a separate program or somebody that sort of oversees that? Or
yeah, we do. So our caregiver program is actually within our I&R department.
Yeah, okay.
So our caregiver specialist is a supervisor in the I&R department, and she can go out and meet with families, caregivers. She can do an assessment. She can talk to them about what is available to them to sort of help them to deal with the burden of caregiving.
Yeah, and I think, I think people don't necessarily think about this or realize it, but, there are different levels of caregivers and different types of caregivers, and it's different if you're caregiving for a spouse than if you're caregiving for a parent or a grandparent or a friend. I mean, there's so many different scenarios, but I especially worry the most about those who are spouses, because a lot of times they're caregiving for somebody, but they have their own health issues. So you've got two people sort of declining at the same time. And also spouses tend to do caregiving for the longest period of time. They've been doing it for a long time, and they also do the most hands-on. So if you start to get into, kind of who does what. But it is a fascinating topic. I'm thrilled that you have somebody who actually specializes in that, and that's the next person we're getting on this show, because I agree with you. I think that caregiving is not looked at enough. I don't think we're paying enough attention to that, but it's huge. And especially because we have, we kind of have a worker shortage of healthcare workers. So if it weren't for these family members who are, really doing the bulk of the caregiving, we'd just have more of a mess on our hands. So I absolutely can see where that's another one of those in-demand things that we don't necessarily think about. Anything else that you're seeing sort of an uptick demand, or would you say those are like your top two?
Yeah, I mean, I think those programs and our home care program, I mean, it just continues to grow.
Yeah.
Because the need is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Val, can you just give us the phone number of Highland Valley if somebody, is watching the show or has questions or, maybe wants to talk to somebody about like the options counseling or something? What's the number? Where would they call?
They would call our main number, which is 413-586-2000.
Perfect. So easy to remember. But it is, get that one in front of the 413 because you are calling Florence, just in case you didn't hear that. I want to thank you, Valerie. This has been it's been a great overview. When I went back and looked at last month's, you had done a really nice job of explaining the ASAP versus the Area Agency on Aging, and really mostly just a matter of where the funding is coming from. Everyone's keeping their fingers crossed that the funding continues to come, especially at the federal level. But thank you for what you do and for the staff at Highland Valley. And it's just been really great having different staff members come in and really talk about their specific job. So I bet I could take every one of those 7 I&R people and get them in here to talk about whatever their sort of specialization is. Mm-hmm. All right, folks, it is 7:59. You are listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. So next week it's Brady and me. So Pete will be out and Brady LePage will be behind the glass doing the producing. So we're excited about that. Dr. Akinele Lovelace will be joining me next week. So I will see you then.
Ocean Man.